Hello and welcome to Behind the Lens, an inside look at what it's like to gather TV news. I'm Stuart Pittman, Chief Photojournalist for QCN News Plus, and I'm glad you're here. This week, we're getting influenced. When it comes to local TV news, Ruby Durham has been there, done that. But a few years ago, Ruby did the unthinkable. She left. These days, she's doing her own thing and using all the skills she learned behind the lens to make those dreams come true. Better step aside. And joining us to explore all that are two experts in the field, super producer Austin McCollum. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I don't have to live up to that at all.
Oh, no. And an old colleague of mine, journalist turned content creator extraordinaire with so many hats, I can't really describe them all. Ruby Durham. How you doing, Ruby?
Hello, I'm doing well. I hope to have a good time with you today.
I suspect we will, because we're here to talk about something you know a lot about. And as a resident old guy in the room, I need something of an education.
Okay.
Because back in my day, we watched this thing called television,
Mm-hmm.
and it had about 15, 20 channels on it, and you could find all kinds of things, including 3 or 4 variations of the local news per se. These days, you carry a device around in your pocket that could show you a satellite, show you most anything, show you the world's greatest works, or show you a complete time waster. And so I'm babbling here, but communication has changed, shall we say?
It has.
Yeah.
And Ruby, you're a perfect example of that because I know you from the time we spent together as part of a news crew here
Yeah.
in Charlotte. Tell me how long you were a local TV journalist.
Oh, so I was really blessed to get a job in TV news right after college.
Mhm.
Went to Coastal Carolina 2015 and jumped right into an internship after graduation and got hired on. So from 2016 to about 2022 was my time on the news.
What are you doing now?
Okay. Yes. The news, I keep telling people, I never thought that it would be the end all be all for me, but I
Right.
always knew it was going to be a chapter and I was going to need that chapter for what I'm doing now. And my brand asks, if not you who, if not you
Sure.
who, to have the audacity to chase their dreams, have the audacity to utilize resources and relationships to push those dreams forward, especially if you are boots on the ground and doing it, making something out of nothing.
Right.
So performing is what I'm doing. I am on stage, I am singing, I have been acting, I'm dancing. I still love production. I do a podcast called
Right.
Ruby's Roundtable, hosting that and just talking to guests who are also taking the leap of faith in business so I can learn because I didn't go to school for business. I went to school to be on TV and learn journalism, but the skills that I've learned in terms of editing, shooting, writing, storytelling, how to
Sure.
present yourself.
Yep.
All of those things are tips and tricks that I'm using in my performance, in my stage presence. So I definitely appreciate the time that I had and just still figuring out how can I utilize the same organization skills that I learned on the news.
Were I younger, I could see, getting out of local television altogether and pursuing such a dream. So I got to say, Ruby, looking at some of your content, if I had your confidence, I'd have 5 best-selling books. 'Cause
Listen,
you're not afraid
It's
of
never too late,
anything.
Stuart.
It's not.
it's never too late. You can start now.
Okay, well, all I can
You
say,
basically those tweets,
Yeah,
you can turn
okay.
those tweets into a book.
You know what's so funny? And I told Stuart, because we've only worked together for 2 years. When I used to work in Seattle,
Uh-huh.
there was a Twitter account. Because, there's not a lot of people in news who
Uh-huh.
create online
Right.
content that is consumed by news people.
Right.
I remember seeing tweets from a certain account with this rain jacket over the head. And I was like, oh, this guy
Getting hairy.
gets it. Like, he just understands it at a fundamental level. And then when I met him, I was like, is that
Who is this guy?
your account?
Who is this guy?
Yes. Talk.
Well,
We didn't even know each other.
we
And
did.
I knew you.
We didn't, and I'm not here to talk about me, I promise. But I think what you're saying is today's social media economy,
Mhm.
that economy of attention, you can turn in any direction and use for good, bad, or indifferent.
Correct.
And I learned that at an older age when the internet, I was like 32 when the internet came to fore. So it's interesting to see people much younger than I totally grasp video communication.
And you have to have the confidence. You learn that on TV. So,
Yeah.
am I usually scared or nervous? Yes, but like I said, I say to myself, okay, if not, who gonna do it? If not you, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to wake you up. When we used to have to get up in the morning, who is waking you up? That alarm clock, and you better answer it
Yeah.
for to have your job because
Sure.
the news starts at a certain time and you have to be in position. So,
Yeah.
again, those are some things that I learned on the news where you have to have tough skin, and once that camera is on you, make it happen. And so I'm basically doing the same thing, just I'm using my voice in a different way. I'm still storytelling, but I'm putting music behind it.
Well, certainly, if you can show up at a difficult crime scene an hour after it happened, where the details are still kind of sketchy, and go on television
Yeah.
and emit what little information you have in a pleasing, pleasant way, that's a skill everybody ain't got. So
Right.
if you can do that, and if you're someone like yourself, Ruby, to where it comes somewhat natural. I know you've worked hard to get there, but you're also a natural at it. If you can do that, yeah, I would advise stepping away from the city council meeting and putting that focus on what little slice of life I wanted
Right.
to shine a light on.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, your whole topic today, influencer journalism. You know,
Right.
I think there, and Ruby and I were chatting about this before we started.
Yeah.
You know, we as millennials kind of grew up in that halfway point
Right.
where we grew up pre-internet, post-internet,
Yeah.
and we have a feeling of a deeper understanding of the type of content people want to consume, especially in the last 10 years, where we've seen this incredible meteoric rise of influencer journalists.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of people have trust issues with, and I always say I couch that with like cable news, the 24-hour, the big stuff, the
Right.
CNN, the CBS news, where I will always defend local news and say, look,
True.
this is just normal people who are just there to do a job.
Right.
They're professional mediums. We're there to convey the facts to you. Where now most people, I think it was like 1 in 5 people are getting the bulk of their news from social media.
Right.
And so how do we kind of bridge that gap and meet people where they're at? I mean, I think it's no secret that TV news, traditional TV news, is a changing industry. I don't want to say dying because we have found ways to reinvent ourselves,
Right.
find new ways. And I think this is one of those areas where if you're not adapting to it,
Right.
you're going to get left behind.
Yes. And this was the same story when we were on the news. When you
Right.
were speaking with a producer about your story, or the producers were in the morning meeting and talking about the entire show, it was still a conversation of how can we relate to social media, because social media was always booming, and it was always an evolving question of how do we insert ourselves in that conversation when we know a lot of our audience is on social media and not watching or not up at 5 a.m. turning
Yeah.
on the TV. So it's always going to be evolving.
It's not appointment viewing anymore.
No,
No.
it's convenient scrolling. When I think about the internet and the effect it had on local news and media as general, I think back to maybe, 20 years ago or so, where we had this reporter at my station, young lady, and she had the most annoying habit of staring at her phone at this thing called Twitter, and she was obsessed with it. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't get her to write her script for the daily news because of Twitter. And as a pushing 40s old guy, I'm like, hell is this?
Yeah.
Who is this person? Doesn't she get it? Doesn't she understand we're TV news
Right.
journalists? I think about her now, and I wonder how far behind I am on current issues, like I was behind back then.
And that reporter was Ruby Durham.
And here she is.
And here she is. No, Austin, you were saying earlier. I was talking about my earliest awareness of what the internet and social media might do to news gathering. You were mentioning something you experienced.
So when I was a producer in Seattle, Washington, we had an incident. It's called Chop Chaz, where a group of protesters had essentially taken over a city block outside of a Seattle police station.
Okay.
They had it locked down. Seattle police vacated the building. And I think this went on, if I remember, because this is almost 10 years ago, it went on for about a month or so.
Mhm.
Huge story on the Pacific Northwest. And when we're trying to gather news overnight, and you understand as a former morning reporter, and Stuart, you've worked every shift imaginable, gathering news overnight is not easy for
Right.
a traditional news station because you have to call in people, you got to do overtime, you got to do all this rigmarole. There was a gentleman named Omari Salisbury who just kind of did it on his own. He would go in with a cell phone.
Hmm.
He would broadcast live. They let him
Hmm.
into the Chaz city block
Hmm.
because again they would not let in any traditional journalists. If
Hmm.
you were with Cairo, if you were with King 5, you were with Como, you were immediately barred from being let
Okay.
in because they didn't trust the media to
Hmm.
tell their story about why they were shutting down this block, but they trusted Omari.
Yeah.
And he was allowed to go in. I think he would stream on Twitch,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
was incredible at the time as a person who grew up with, watching people online when it was formerly Justin.tv. He was allowed in. He just talked to people.
Yeah.
And I would consider that my first real introduction
Okay.
to, and I don't want to call him an influencer, but he's definitely a journalist.
Right.
This is 12:30 in the morning. This is a live stream with several thousand people watching. And it's just a guy going around showing what's happening,
Right.
and he's interviewing people. And I think that really, in a way, influenced my understanding of what would really become this prevalent influencer economy when it comes to journalism and news.
Yeah.
In a healthy way, reshaped my thinking. Because I think for a lot of us, in a bad way, we're kind of almost like the wall's immediately up.
Hmm.
We don't trust these people.
Yeah.
They didn't go to J school. They didn't, cut their teeth a top 150 market.
Right.
They didn't put in that time. How can we trust them? When in reality, I think that's what people want.
Yeah.
They want to just be shown everything
Right.
Right.
to a degree, and then they can make their own decision.
Right. Authenticity and trust and being yourself to the utmost and being visible, like you said, showing everything is pretty much why I think Omari was able to go in with no problem.
Yeah.
Because if someone is seeing you consistently or they are seeing stories about you just going and showing up and being your utmost self and taking a risk, for whatever reason, that gets a little bit more insight than sometimes the person with the professional camera, with the professional crew, suited and booted
Yeah.
or cut to a certain cloth. Because while we're going to tell the facts and we're going to be first, it's almost a different standard that we hold versus the person who is super authentic and saying, hey, what is going on? I got my camera. Some people trust that. And so I think it goes back to being authentic and relationships.
Stuart, you've covered protests. Ruby, I'm not familiar if you've covered any
Yeah.
protest. Okay. I think that's one of the easiest ways to talk about it because, when you are a news crew, you have your professional camera on
Your
your
camera,
shoulder, you have
Yeah.
your live view backpack, you have the mics, you have a team running around. I think with the protests, again, the perception from the protesters is you're not going to tell the right story,
Correct.
which
Or twist it later
Yes.
on.
Twist
you're going to spin
Twist
it
it,
for your
right.
narrative, which again, no, news, we are there to tell the facts.
Right.
But we are also constrained. Your package has to be minute 30,
Right.
2 minutes.
So that means you
Can-
might leave out something.
Can you tell the full story? Which I think gets into the perception of and I think a lot of people feel this way is can you trust some, and I hate saying this, can you trust the media?
Mhm.
And that's where we've seen this big rise
Yeah.
of these people who are just there like, look, I'm just here to just show what's happening.
Right.
I'm just here to show you everything. I'm
Right.
gonna shotgun you with as much information as we can.
And people love that.
They love it.
People eat it up. There's this one guy on TikTok. He shows up on my algorithm. He's in Atlanta, I think,
Yeah.
and he goes out there with his robe on. He has I don't know. He's just comfortable, but
Yeah.
somehow he's like at every scene. He's at every story. He's sometimes the first person, and people, the views, the comments, the
Yeah.
engagement that he has is crazy.
The
So
relatability.
it goes back to that authenticity. He's rolling out of bed. Hey, this is what's going on. I'm first on the scene. Now he's even getting the first responders who's out there talking on camera.
Because
I-
again,
I
it
love
is
that.
now it's become more accepted.
Yeah.
15
wanna-
year ago.
I want to we got to go to a break in a second,
Ah.
but when we get back, I want to continue on that because as someone who's been in the game a little longer than you guys, I'm fascinated by the style of presentation
Mm.
and the way it has changed and what
Ooh.
we I mean, look back at the very birth of television from our perspective, and it looks, like black and white puppets.
Yeah.
It just doesn't even look real. And I suspect um, my grandchildren will grow up thinking the same thing of stuff from 20 years ago because what was the proper way to present the news
Mhm.
now looks like vaudeville.
Oh, yeah. It's
And
like, why are you talking like
that
that?
fascinates me because I plan to be around a little longer and ride the rest of this out. So we'll talk about it all in a minute when we come back. I, like anybody else, like my 83-year-old mother, live by her phone. I don't know what my mom's doing right now, but she's got her phone.
It's
And
scrolling.
she's
But see,
scrolling.
I would say if you are living by your phone, you are more tuned in than you realize.
Right.
Yeah,
So
but it's such a vast world of stuff out there.
yeah.
How can you be an expert at anything when everything is so
Yeah.
chopped up and striated and you can be a absolute rock star in your tiny, tiny, tiny world.
Right. I
What's that
think
worth?
there's something in me that says I am definitely a doom scroller, but then the another part in me is like, okay, you have to get off the phone to have your own opinions because sometimes if you are on your phone too much,
Yeah.
you are now agreeing with things that you probably wouldn't. You're probably just looking into things that you probably wouldn't. So sometimes you have to really step back so you
Sure.
can have your own thoughts and protect your thoughts on situations that probably do really matter to you, but you are looking at so many things at one time. It's like, wait, I'm just siding with what everybody else is doing and saying.
Algorithms will be the death of your opinion because again,
Ooh, I like that.
they know how to feed into what
I
you are viewing
know.
longer, what you are liking, what you are saving, sending.
They are watching
They are
us.
watching.
That's
They
that
are
is
listening
eerie.
to us.
That is eerie. You know, my wife and I will be on the couch with our phones in our hands talking about hey, maybe we should get a new coffee maker. And within seconds I seem to have coffee makers
That
on
is
my feed.
crazy.
And I know that's no news bulletin to anybody, but holy cow, what's that all about? That's crazy.
Mm.
But I mean, as someone like yourself who is kind of living by the content creation, you want your brand to scroll past my feed in any number of forums, I would think.
Yeah, it is good news to have your brand story, especially if you are selling a service, if you are selling a product, if you are selling your personal brand. Obviously, you want the algorithm in your favor
Sure.
to put that out there. But on the other end, I'm on the side as a millennial as, okay, yes, I'm on content creation. I'm here for the influencer. You still have to go and be face to face in the community. You have to go put boots on the grounds because people trust social media, but they really trust you if they can feel that same energy in person. So it's interesting to see how it's growing right now and where it may be 3 to 5 years.
So it's funny you say that. Here with Queen City News Plus, we're doing a podcast.
Right.
Go back 5 years, how many local TV news stations were doing podcasts?
Right.
You watch, your local station. I guarantee you, within a span of 2 hours, you will see one or two promos that push either a streaming app
Mhm.
or a
Podcast.
podcast. I mean, look at CNN because that's typically what I prefer to watch.
Yeah.
Download the CNN Plus podcast or whatever
Yeah.
they're calling it, and you can watch all these extra things. And I think that again, news we are always trying to adapt to the content people want to consume. Again, meet people where they're at.
Yep.
And like this room, our blue room, is one of those examples of trying to meet an audience that is
Yeah.
expecting something new,
Right.
expecting something different. We do a 3 p.m. newscast out of here, a
Uh-huh.
half hour. We were for a while just streaming
Mhm.
on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, our
Mhm.
Queen City News Plus app. Now we're on the CW Charlotte here in
Mhm.
town. And the look of it when we went into designing it
Mhm.
was something that feels different. You'll have this what we call the carousel where it's
Mhm.
these images of the stories coming up.
Right.
So it feels like, again, we're tapping in maybe to the ADD brain of someone that's like, well, I like this, but I don't just like seeing a tight shot of a
Right.
figure, then an OTS,
Right.
and then now we're going to a video. It's something you want to string people along
Right.
in a healthy way, keep them interested because there are big stories we want to tell you.
Right.
And even going off of that, now you're going to see a lot more people shooting vertical content.
Oh, for sure.
Now,
I think that's
we're
the biggest change.
You said the best thing, and that was meet people where they are. You have to meet
Yeah.
people where they are because obviously they want to see, oh, they're streaming too. Oh, they are using vertical content. If you can find some consistency where people already are, I think that is a good step forward to stay within the conversation and also stay visible within what's happening in the now.
But
Yep.
part of the challenge for local news, which doesn't want to go away, is going to be adapting to that.
Yeah.
And as much as I love my phone and understand vertical video, as a career photojournalist, working in 4x3 or 16:9, the idea of shooting vertical is really
Just
fills
flip
me
it.
with physical pain.
I know. Okay, so
So
what does that look like on TV though? What does vertical video feel like in
on
TV
TV, well, if
news?
you get tired of putting the Gaussian blur to the background behind it, to
Oh, right,
you know
right,
what I'm saying?
right.
So I'm
My favorite
yeah,
precept.
I wouldn't dare preach against vertical video
Yeah.
because I understand that's what
But
it is now.
it's the
But
big
it's a hard thing to do.
But the bigger question is, does it matter? Does it have to be on
Mm,
TV? Because I guarantee you, what I'm going to throw a number out. You have 25,000 people, 25,000 households
right.
watching your 5 a.m. newscast.
Hmm.
Well, what if you produce something, you put it on your station's Facebook page
Right.
or an Instagram page, TikTok, and now you've gotten 50,000 views?
Yeah.
What if you've gotten 100?
Yeah.
There again, news stations will find a way to monetize that and stay
Right.
relevant. But I mean, you again, like we said, meeting people where they are. I just had a seasoned anchor. She wanted to go out and shoot some content.
Mhm.
I said, this is what I want you to do: shoot everything vertical.
Right.
It's going to be 3 minutes,
Hmm.
less than 3 minutes, because Instagram doesn't push out your reels unless
Right.
it's under 3. I want you to go do this. Do everything vertical.
Right.
Still be you.
Right.
Tap into those decades of experience you
Right.
have interviewing people,
Right.
asking the right questions, getting the shots. But now, just turn your phone.
Right.
You're not 16:9. You're
Right.
you're 9:16.
Are you? What is wrong with that,
It'll look very
Stuart?
nice.
There's nothing wrong with it, but when you have practiced the craft of wide, medium, tight,
Yeah.
action, reaction, it's
Think of it as
it's
another
just
tool in your toolbox.
I do, and if
There
I
you go.
still produce news stories on the reg, I would certainly include that. But it just goes against everything I've ever practiced. So even for someone who's as open minded about it as me,
Yeah.
it's wow. I get it. Vertical video is the way
It's
that
a
things
thing.
are.
It's a
It's a
whole
thing. I
thing.
know it is, but it's strange how that affects me. So, but
Yeah.
but I'm not here to talk about that.
No judgment.
What I'm curious about is how will old TV guys like myself
Hmm.
adapt to this and survive? Not so much the old guys, but the stations and the
Yeah.
outlets, because TV news isn't going away. The best we can do is make it not turn into local AM radio.
Mm.
AM radio still exists. It's there. When's the
Yeah.
last time you tuned into it?
Ooh.
Never.
Okay.
I
I don't
even
want
know.
local news to become AM radio. Nothing against AM radio. I love AM radio.
I
Um,
mean, I hate to say it like this, it's adapt or die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it just
I
is.
Get with it or get lost.
She's got it.
She has got it, as always.
But wait, before we wrap up,
Please.
what is your opinion on influencers who are being invited to red carpets and major moments to ask celebrities and top people questions that typically a journalist would?
I think that that's the wave of the future, and for me to have a dissenting opinion on that particularly would be like the producer of the Buggy Whip, who went out of business when cars came along. I mean, you can wave your
Right.
Buggy Whip and complain about it, but to my mind, it's America, it's a democracy. Everyone's invited.
I mean, look at the side, not to keep us going
Yeah.
farther, look at the side wall of the White House briefing room. That
Yeah.
This is under this administration. They've invited a lot of influencers,
Yeah.
journalists who don't work for major organizations or
Right.
maybe do their own. YouTubers who are
Right.
there along the wall, who typically get the first question.
Because they have it's number one, they have platforms and people are
Sure.
watching them and trusting their story.
Sure.
And then number two, if you think about the news, we have beats and everybody has a certain beat. Well, there are influencers who have beats, and there are influencers who are talking about politics, and
Right.
people are tuning in just for that. There are influencers talking about music, fashion, and being trusted in those spaces. But a common disagreement right now is for the people who are professionally trained in journalism. Is that the right person to be in those spaces?
I have been to the White House briefing room, and it was full of crusty old guys. It was. I was the youngest person there.
Oh,
So yeah. So I mean, it's like, oh, it's a new guy. I'm gonna show him around. And nothing against crusty old guys. I'm quickly becoming one. But it doesn't bother me at all that there are more people at the party. Do I get tired of framing my shot high enough to get over the people with the telephones at press conferences? Yeah, I'm tired of that. But that's the wave of the future. And anybody who's fighting that in local TV news might as well go ahead and get out of the business because
Hard agree.
uh, the the format always changes, right?
yeah.
It's the message.
It's the
It's the
message.
message.
Ooh, and the storytelling.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's going to transcend any format,
Right.
no matter where you see it, how you see it.
Right.
Ruby, thank you.
No, thank
We could
you.
do this
We
in
can
a
talk
day.
about
We
Telling
could,
you,
and
you
we're gonna
all
have to
have
get
a-
back.
we can talk
Yeah.
about this all the time.
Because there are so many facets of it, and there's so many
Yeah.
ways it's going. It's really hard to wrap your head around. But we're going to wrap up this episode of Behind the Lens, an inside look at what it's like to gather TV news. Ruby Durham, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Austin McCollum, thank you for your time.
Of course.
And thank you for your time. This has been Behind the Lens, an inside look at what it's like to gather TV news. And we'll see you next time.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.